this is the Just Us podcast, and we're here. You know exactly what you're talking about, Matt. You're talking about the transformation that people have, and I think you have I think you did pose a question too, and before we started this podcast, which was, at what point are people set in their ways in your lives? You know, you said you were reading a book. You could talk about that book and stuff too. Yeah, it's 35 years old. You said, can you articulate that again? That idea that something stops at a certain point in your life?
Yeah. The idea is that when you are about 35 years old, 95% of your behaviors, your thoughts, your emotions are already programmed, and only 5% of like kind of your thoughts are original, are different, or could be, you know, transformative. So it's the kind of the problem that there's 5% of your brain, right? When you want to make changes, when you want to do something, when you want to get your life together, or so to speak, right? Be healthy. It's only 5% of your brain that you actually have control of. The other 95% of your habits, your personality, your subconscious emotions are all subconscious. And actually it's even deeper than that, because it's your body. Your body is the one who is controlling everything. So your body now has become your mind. And to change that,
interesting.
To change that takes a lot of effort, a lot of uncomfortableness, and also
so what's the part about being 35?
Yep. So when you're 35, that is when it happens. So by the time you're 35, you kind of build up to that 95% of, I am this person. This is who I am. Every morning you wake up, you say, I am. For me, I'm Matt Ragudo. I am a Medicare specialist, financial advisor, trader, husband, father. I live here. I do this. I wake up, I brush teeth. You know, that's 100% or 95% of all that activity is already programmed in here by 35.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you're just kind of operating by how you've been set up.
Mm-hmm.
That's I don't know. I kind of let me throw this out there, because my father used to tell me something that was kind of opposite, that he had read in some kind of book or something. I would imagine. I don't know. I forgot what source he quoted, and he was saying something kind of the opposite about how, you know, this idea about life begins at 40 kind of thing, where we're sort of slaves to our evolutionary design until we get past our prime reproductive period. You know, like he was really, I don't know if it was he was talking more, I think, about 30. I remember when I turned 30, he was kind of congratulating me on getting through, you know, early adulthood, where you're sort of hormones and sort of a deep-seated evolutionary need to reproduce kind of dominates your behavior.
That's a very strong counter argument on, and it makes sense though, because when you hit a point where no longer is your prime ordinate or your prime objective to procreate, reproduce, what is it then, right? And I think that's why around the age of 35 is when all of that identity has become built, right? So for
the things that you do other than trying to,
right,
you know,
just fulfill
that biological role. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're already, So you're already kind of you're like, by the time you're 35, most people in our in American society anyway, at least maybe not today, but you know, generations past, by 35, they got a job. Probably they got at least in the career focus that they think that they're going to stay in for the rest of their life. Or that's their hope, right? That what they're doing today is the job that they will retire with, or at least a type of job, maybe not the same company. And then, of course, at 35, if you have a partner, that's the partner that you're going to be with for the foreseeable future. If you live in a community, that community or that area is kind of where you are going to stay at. And every morning, your routine is pretty much predetermined. You know, you're going to wake up at around the same time. Let's call it 7 a.m. get ready, brush teeth, shower, whatever, all that stuff, brush, use a restroom,
yeah.
get dressed. All of that stuff is done subconsciously almost, where you're not making any decisions. You already have like a pre-set out list of things you're going to wear.
I think some people more than others though, Matt, and pardon me for interrupting, but I think you're probably someone who's more like that than me.
Oh yeah.
Like I don't, it's pretty rare. Oh, bye kids. My kids are off to school. It's a little late. That's all right. Preschool. So, where were we? We were talking about
like
the,
I live
I'm not as I am too in a way, but maybe just in some of the specific examples I'm not. I don't always wake up at the same time.
I'm talking very rigidly though, and it's not meant to be. It's meant to. I'm talking very rigidly to just drive a point through. Not to say this is exactly what it is. It's kind of like if I make a choice. Let's say I go to work, and there is a familiar coworker who I might not have the greatest impression of. Just say for that, right? My brain will automatically just think all negative things about this person because that's familiar, not because it's true, because it's familiar. And that familiarity is already built up inside of us with all those types of things by the time we're around 35. So maybe not getting up in the morning at the same time, but interacting with people in a similar way, even though we're not actually interacting with them. Maybe that's more kind of close to like how when you interact with your dad, unless something recently has had a big change, to reach that other end of where change is took a lot of uncomfortableness, maybe some emotional tension, emotional breaks, like yelling, screaming, shouting, until it came to where it is today. What the author or the kind of not tense, but the idea that this author talks about is pretty much saying that at 35, it will take things like that, high emotional tension, high conviction, conscious change to make any kind of change in that 95% of what's already built up in your environment. So if you're a negative person at 35, it's going to take a lot of conscious effort to become a positive person, not because you are a negative person, but because negativity is familiar and your body likes familiar. Your body wants to create that negative hormone reaction that it gets from thinking negatively of that coworker. And for me, the one thing that I thought, my one fundamental belief growing up was that school was important. Now, education's important, but I thought school was important, not education. I would do whatever I could to get high grades, do whatever I could to graduate. Not like illegally, like I'm talking within the confines of the educational system, not cheat.
But you cut on sleep, or you drank too much coffee, or you sacrificed other things to achieve your academic goals. It's excellent. You're an all A student. I don't know. I was like more like a little bit under that. I wasn't all A's. I got some B's and stuff too. I must have got some D's and a couple W's while I was at it,
Yeah, but
I could see there is a crucial difference though. And there are examples of people who are highly successful who sort of abandoned the traditional educational model of sort of credits and rather valued the ideas which seemed most valuable to them or most interesting. Which is a really good, that whole pleasure principle or whatever, I remember reading some graduation speech from Howard Zinn or something that sort of laid out the flow, following the flow experience and, using the pleasure principle to decide upon what type of I think the title of the speech was like on choosing a major, right? You know,
Mm-hmm.
so I
So
would agree with. I think that's what you're sort of getting at is there's a over focus on the structure itself, or sort of achieving their benchmarks of performance that doesn't necessarily always line up with your original intention in enrolling yourself in that institution or whatever. Yeah.
right. So kind of like how, and I just thought about this right now, which is pretty crazy, but kind of like how the school has a structure, right? The structure is supposed to prepare us for the future, but unfortunately, it doesn't, right? Not to say that we are unsuccessful at what we did. I'm just saying that the items that might have made us successful wasn't necessarily learned inside of a classroom over the 15 years that we were in school. Well, maybe not 15 years, maybe closer to like what? K through 12 is 13, 5 years of, yeah, about 18 years. I went to school for 5 years in college. I took the long route, not 4 years
Oh
for
yeah, I
the
was five and a half, five and a half.
5 year, yeah, 5 year
Yeah.
degree. So 18 years of schooling, most of which I don't think was necessary to do what school was intended to do, which is to prepare us for the future. Similarly, our biology, unfortunately, doesn't prepare us to be successful. It prepares us to be familiar to our life. So if we program our body by the time we're 35 to be a certain way, then that way is not going to be beneficial or negatively affect our life. It's just the way that it is. Our body, if we're in, so let's say we're in the worst circumstance of our life, our body will like it there because it's familiar. Same for the best circumstances of our life. Our body will like it because it's familiar. School, on the other hand.
Hey, draw that one out. Draw that one out for me a little bit with an example or something. I'm having a hard time conceptualizing what you mean.
So I can't speak from firsthand experience, but many domestic violence victims would rather remain in their relationship than leave their relationship because of familiarity, right? So for most,
that's the reason they don't leave.
Is familiar.
Well, there's probably a number of reasons, aren't there?
Right. I mean,
some
psychological reasons.
Yeah, so they're afraid to leave because of sort of various results of the conditioning of experiencing that or something. And also fear of the repercussions that might result.
Correct, but think about it.
Changing the family structure.
If you're getting abused physically, mentally, multiple times a day, most people looking from the outside looking in would say anything's better than that. Jail is better than that. If you have somebody who beats you up, mentally harasses you, harasses you, wouldn't you rather just leave that environment? Even death might be better than that, right? Some would think. But for the victim,
I think a lot of people are committed in their relationships. And, it's like, there might be people out there. I mean, yeah, if you're talking about extreme abuse, I think physical abuse is definitely off limits, right?
Oh, yes.
There is a certain level of, I hate to be an advocate for abuse, but there's a certain level of psychological abuse that isn't extreme, but it's acceptable. And I think it's a part of our life. And I don't think people acknowledge it. I don't think people do acknowledge it. And so there is a kind of area, I think, in a relationship where we do, I feel like it's a spectrum. I think when you step into the physical, or it's extreme psychological abuse, or this kind of verbal abuse with name calling or other, like you're saying, I mean, harassment comes in various forms and stuff like that, right? I'm not an expert on such things, but I do think there is a certain level of abuse that occurs, especially, I don't know, yeah, I think in a lot of relationships, there's, I don't even want to call it abuse, but it's a hard call, right?
Well,
Isn't it a hard call for a lot
at that point, it wouldn't be abuse,
relationships,
right?
But, right. Yeah, you're true. You're right. Keep talking.
So no, I mean, you make a good point. Like there has to be some, like, to say that all conflict in relationships is abuse would be false, right? What you're saying is conflict is good. Conflict provides us resolution. It provides us a way to fix a problem that one person is having in a mutual relationship, right? Conflict. That's okay. Having disagreements is okay. But physically beating somebody up for no reason at all.
Absolutely.
Or
why would people stay in
right.
a relationship like that? Is because they're making a mistake 99.9% of the time, right? I mean, right.
And the body, unfortunately, gets the okay, like I said, I'm not a psychologist or
I'm not
an
a
endocrinologist.
Expert. I'm not a relationship
Neither
expert.
of us are. But to kind of harp on that rigidness of to prove or to explain a point, those people who are in those relationships willingly. They're in those relationships willingly. Whatever they tell themselves in their head is not as important as the fact that their bodies and their subconscious mind is happier there because it's familiar, not because it's negative, not because they enjoy it, but because it's familiar. Their body has created a feedback loop to create this environment, internal environment that is familiar. And that's unfortunately how we are programmed as human beings. On the flip side, you take someone like Bill Gates, right? You just like, wow, this guy is like so successful. He's successful here. He's successful here. He's living a long life. He's successful here. He's successful here. Like, how come we have people like him, and then we have people who, are pooping on the side of Catholic churches, right? What, why? And
come on down.
And it's just because
covered.
Just because they're familiar, right? They're familiar. It's familiar. He has found that success for him is a familiar feeling, and he goes toward that. It's not that he is working. Maybe he is working harder, but in his mind, that is what makes sense to him. That is familiar to him. He has somehow managed to get out of laziness, get out of being non-productive and just sitting down and watching TV. He thrives, and his body likes that success formula. And it's not saying that nobody can get that, but many of us who grow up in the standard schooling system believe, like I did, that if you go to school, get good grades, you'll get a good job, and you'll be successful. But no one defined any of those things other than you'll get a good job and you'll be successful. What does that even mean? Will you be happy at your job? Oh, what is success? A lot of money? I don't know. Family? I don't know. So bringing it all the way back to the beginning of that 95% of your body, or 95% of your subconscious mind is already programmed when you're 35. When we leave school, currently in the current schooling system, you would think that 100% of what you need to succeed in life has been taught to you over these 18, 17 years of formal education. But it's not. But we are meant to believe that it is. And that's why it's really problematic. And that's why I had a belief of, I love school, academics, wonderful. Teach us about real life, wonderful. Yeah. Now I'm like, academics, that's a separate, like, educational process. Life is another separate educational process, just like how art is and business is. They're all just separate educational processes. So to think that academia will teach you about the world is like trying to interpret like the charts by looking at like an EKG or something, you know, like looking at like technical analysis of the stock market and saying, oh, that's the same thing as a electrocardiogram. Completely unrelated. They might look the same, right? It's lines going through time, but it means absolutely nothing, or they're non-correlated at all. So that's why I have kind of, over the past, I think 2 or 3 months, I've been kind of more open to trying new things, to feel uncomfortable and to feel like to grow as a person and to feel.
That's really cool. So what have you been doing specifically that is something different or new?
Well, so my YouTube videos have taken a completely different turn now. Cool. On the YouTube side, I am doing mostly article reviews, updates for my current clients. I'm having a separate thing where I'm actually teaching people about technical analysis, which is something that I didn't think I should do, just because, I don't know, I stuck in my old ways, you know, as someone who took finance as a major.
It's all about fundamentals.
It's all about fundamentals, right? Yeah.
Right.
So
now you get, but you were getting into technical analysis before, yeah.
Correct. Well, it was more as because it was in the spectrum of the finance, I thought I better learn a little bit about it. But in school, drilled, right? PE ratio is this.
Warrior trading or something, right?
Yeah, warrior trading. They
a while ago.
They're basically momentum. Almost all trading on the retail side is momentum and well,
that's technical analysis too, right?
Yeah. It's a way.
Well, I thought a lot of technical analysis traders aren't on like commodities, and it's not momentum, but rather they set up, up and down, right? Momentum implies it's just going in one direction over the long term, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could scalp on the Forex, like the foreign exchange markets. That's kind of where technical analysis began in the foreign exchange markets, in the futures markets. But nowadays, technical analysis is on practically everything: commodities, stocks. You can even do technical analysis on options. It's not a smart thing to do, but you could try. But they also have a whole ton of indicators. And the reason why I think it's really important to talk about technical analysis now is because a lot of people nowadays use technical analysis, and you kind of understand the basis of a chart. You understand the basis of the information provided in a chart. You're able to kind of, with that basic information of the knowledge that can be gleaned from a chart, all the indicators are created, right? Exponential moving average. It is what it says it is. It's the price action over the moving average of the price action over whatever indication you say, like 8, 12, 21, 50, 200, whatever, right? But all of that information.
And so you're making videos about this is something new that's different in your life?
Very, very different, because before
it's technicals.
Before I would talk a lot about fundamentals, right? What this kind of meant and its implications toward the broad market. While I still think it's important, I have both professional training and academic training on said for fundamentals.
Right.
Because I worked as a financial advisor, and I went to school as for finance. My degree is in finance. Now I'm teaching on stuff that I'm a learner and I don't have formal education on. I don't have even a professional education, because there really isn't formal professional education on technical analysis yet. There is some, but it's relatively new, and it's
like if you work for a fund that did that kind of stuff, that would be the education, right?
Right. If
with
I was a hedge
not
fund manager.
education, but credential.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Track
I mean, a
record,
lot of,
experience.
I don't know what proportion of hedge fund managers do technical analysis based work, but it's beside the point. Tell me though, Matt, how does that shift? Like, is there something fundamental to the difference between technical analysis and fundamental analysis that reflects your effort to kind of, because get please correct me where I'm wrong, but you're saying that this newfound sort of interest in technical analysis represents you sort of, I don't know, but kind of swimming upstream, right? That you're sort of going against the natural course of sort of solidifying your behavior at around our age,
Right.
into the habits that you've already developed. Like, what is it at its core? Because I mean, from an outsider's perspective, you're still talking about finance. You're still making
Yeah.
YouTube videos
Right.
about finance. It's like that isn't a big change. Like, I thought you were going to start talking about piano.
That is something also.
And again,
that
you're
I
a
will be going
guitarist,
into.
but
Mm-hmm.
you're also a guitarist, right? So I mean, what is and maybe there again, is there something that is fundamentally different between those two things that
A lot,
represent something,
actually.
or are you actually proving your same point because you're just making other slightly different
Changes.
YouTube topics, right? Are you not just making slightly different changes?
You would think so, right? Looking at it from the outside, but this is where it's kind of that difference for me. So I could, this is going to sound kind of harsh, but I could probably BS my way on any fundamental economic topic ever, right? Because I've had so much experience with it. We have so much financial news that we have to look at every day when I was a financial advisor to see what the markets did, what the narrative is, what we're going to say about oil prices, gold prices, the S&P, overall market. I could probably create a narrative that would make sense that normal people, even finance people, could agree or agree to disagree, right? That's a valid point. Maybe it's not the main point, but I see your point.
Arguable.
All right. I could create an argument. In technical analysis, I know so little in the vast amount of technical analysis out there that I will be going into something in my mid to late 30s and really trying to be an expert in it. On the same point of the piano, I can see the keys. I know where middle C is, but that's about it. I know that it goes from C and then to C again, and there's what, A, B, C, D, E, F, G notes. I know that much, but on the guitar, all I would need to do is listen to a song, and I probably could tell you with a guitar in hand what key it's in, what's the chord progression, and whether or not this song is in the major key or in the minor key. Like a couple, maybe a minute, and my guitar could tell you. Probably less, probably like 15 seconds if it's a pop song. The piano, I wouldn't even know where to start. So even though I'm shifting, maybe I could learn something different like corsaging or something, but actually that's not true. That's because I actually did in high school, I actually did flower arrangements for agriculture. So I did actually learn how to make corsages and flower arrangements and
yeah.
So I mean, it's not a huge jump away from what I would have already done. Somebody could say, say, hey Matt, you already did it before. But what I'm going with and why this kind of changes, it's kind of going against. Like I always tell my wife that if I don't have finance, like what am I? Like insurance and finance, that's like what I know. If I don't have those things, like, am I still me? Right?
Yeah, dude, you got so much different things going on. You're totally you. Like, bruh, if you told me that you just got sick of finance, I wouldn't look at you any different. You got so many other facets of your life. I think, you seem so grounded within your own like core principles and just manner of like treating other people and looking at the world that I don't know, dude. Is that so core to your identity, or is it just sort of like, is it sort of, I mean, I don't know. I feel like that with teaching or with working as a real estate agent, it's sort of like there's, I don't feel like I would be that much different now if I was in a different field. But I don't think you would be either.
I mean, I guess from an outside perspective, it wouldn't be much different. My friends, my family, they would probably just think, oh, Matt just got another job somewhere. But internally, it would be a big shift, because I'd go from thinking about like my entire day is built around 8:30 market open, right? 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock on Central Standard Time, 4 o'clock Eastern, market closes. You got after hours, we got a summary of the market, what happened, the charts. I look at them every day. I have 2 separate brokerage accounts open that look at the stock every day. And even if I'm not looking at it when I'm doing other things, I know it's there. So a big part of my internal identity is finance. If I were to lose finance, it would be a huge shift in the familiarity of my life. So with that said, the fundamentals, like my brain will still try and tell a narrative to myself when something happens. Like today, market's up. Why? Oh, I'll look for news, right? Because that's what my brain wants. My brain is thinking news. But for me, I'm looking at it now and the market just closed. We hit a key level. Like market doesn't want to get over 416 and doesn't want to go below 408. We're stuck in this range. And it looks like we had a nothing day because Yellen didn't say anything important, right? So the news didn't matter. Yesterday, we had a big uptick in Apple, Microsoft. Continued on today because guess what? Nancy Pelosi bought a whole ton of options on Microsoft and Apple. So we got a whole bunch of people who are thinking that's the play. And who knows? Tomorrow they might get killed, right?
Pelosi stocks.
Hey, I'm just saying that
let's tie this back in though, because we're talking about whether or not you think you've people naturally kind of stop transforming and start just sort of living as creatures of habit. And let's tie that back in.
Yeah, so just like what I was just saying about everything, like I am drawn to the familiarity, not because I know 5% of my brain knows that the story doesn't make the move. The story justifies the move. We've seen it tons of times, right? And we know that by being a technical analyst, by looking at markets, it is the price of the stock that means the most, not the reason why a lot of times, because no one really knows the reason why. It could just be that 100,000 people started working and they turn on their 401k and their 401k has, the SPY is the default investment and they all invested it today. That could be the reason. No one knows. But yet the news will tell us that, because Yellen's talk or whatever's talk was positive. That's what the market. And that is what I'm programmed to believe. So I have so much 95% of my body, that it's not even the thought, it's just the feeling of, that's how it is, because of the programming that I have already set up over those 10 years of doing this professionally, or 5 years of schooling and 5 years professionally. Like, just that's what it means. That's how I get an A,
Yeah.
So that is really difficult for me. And that's kind of why I am so not involved, but so interested in exploring this part, because I think that if I can make these types of changes, because these are the types of changes that I programmed into myself with, 35, no, I'm 37, so 37 years of life, maybe 34 years, because that's when I went to school, right when I was 3. So that, if I can reprogram that, maybe that'll give me enough, confidence to be able to go even further. Maybe I, like you said, maybe I just leave finance completely. Maybe I go and
I'm not saying you should.
No.
But I mean, one day, if you decide to do it,
right,
just do it. It'll always be there. Money's going to be in this world. It'll always be, money. The stock market will be there when you want to go back to it, right?
And if you look at it, right, like how you said, the stock market will be there, everything will be there, but will I want to be there, right? Will I want to be participating in the stock market? What if there's something else that I haven't? What if I'm going to have a new career in like bird watching or something? What if that is something that I want to
go for it? Birds are fantastic. And not to cut you short, but yeah, we are at time.
We are.
So I just wanted to, we're going to cut it here. And then thank you everybody for, listening in. And we hope that it stimulated some of your ideas and thoughts about your own life, whether you're going to be transforming it or standing static through 35 and beyond. Some food for thought.
Yeah, and remember, Sam did have his transformation. I'm going through my internal transformation. Hopefully you guys can have your external transformation and internal transformation. We'll see you guys in the next week. Hopefully we can get into more of Sam's transformations, and maybe we can see what his new